with the reveal that Sabo was not in fact captured at the Reverie, but actually sparked a light of hope for the rest of the world by becoming a symbol for those nations that stand opposed to the world government. The true potential for Sabo in the story has finally emerged. Not merely as a token replacement for the fan-favorite Ace, but as a figure that may stand to surpass him. By that I don't mean in terms of combat strength. Many already believe that Sabo is currently stronger than Ace ever was, and I don't even mean as a character, considering that Ace's character writing during Marineford set such a lofty bar that would be an unfair expectation for Sabo to have to live up to. Rather, I mean that Sabo has the potential to surpass Ace in terms of shaping the narrative of One Piece, and may be poised to play a bigger role in the story than his brother did, perhaps even leading to Sabo being viewed as the more significant of Luffy's two brothers by the time One Piece is over. Today we're going to be breaking down the story of Sabo and Ace, and how Oda may be about to use Sabo to fulfill a pivotal role in the narrative that Ace and even Luffy cannot. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe for more One Piece videos every week. So to start with, I will fully acknowledge that when Sabo was first reintroduced to the story, I was personally disappointed with his character for a good while, for three main reasons. First, I initially felt as though some of the power of Luffy losing Ace was neutered through the introduction of Sabo. Throughout Marineford, an idea that was stressed repeatedly was that Ace was Luffy's only brother in the world. The idea being that this was a fight for Luffy to save someone that was absolutely irreplaceable. And in the wake of that loss of someone absolutely irreplaceable, not only did it spur the most important growth for Luffy as a character in the entire series, it also served as a powerful moment of reflection, as this served as a reminder that even though Luffy had lost Ace, he still had a family. Even though he had lost someone that was irreplaceable, that only served to reinforce the importance of Luffy's crew. This speech by Jinbei, forcing Luffy to recognize that even though he has lost someone very precious, that does not mean he is alone, that he needs to think about what he still has. To me, this is the single most powerful moment in One Piece that exemplifies the bond between Luffy and the Straw Hats. And to me, this message, the message that took an entire arc and a devastating loss for Luffy and the reader to recognize, this message was somewhat weakened when Luffy then got to still have a brother at the end of all of this anyway. Of course, it's not the same brother as before, Ace is being swapped for a different brother, but it did feel a bit to me as though we were being given a backup brother to somewhat heal the hole in Luffy's heart, and make it so that even though Luffy had lost someone, it was balanced out by gaining back someone just as important. Whereas I personally preferred the previous idea that even though Luffy had lost someone, this loss instead served as a lesson to remind Luffy to appreciate those who he still has, as his bond with the crew forms the backbone of the entire story. In a technical sense, you could say the loss of Ace but the gaining of Sabo made the events of Marineford kind of a net zero for Luffy, with the added bonus that he got a much needed lesson and newfound appreciation for his crew, which for me felt like kind of like having your cake and eating it too. It also didn't help that Sabo quickly began picking up a lot of Ace-type similarities right off the bat, such as getting Ace's signature Mera Mera no Mi fruit, being the protege of another world-class figure as Sabo is to Dragon what Ace was to Whitebeard, and throughout Dressrosa, Sabo played a role similar to Ace in Alabasta, shielding Luffy from powerful marines that Luffy could not stand against at that time, and finally leaving Luffy with a Vivre card to find him in the future. Basically, from my perspective, Ace was gone, but this convenient replacement had been brought in. The second reason I didn't particularly care for Sabo was the manner in which he was written in, amnesia, which I am actually really not going to expand upon here, because finally the biggest reason, the third reason that I had my apprehensions about Sabo and his future role was that his fate in the Reverie was left ominously ambiguous, with Oda even putting out quotes in interviews that led many to believe that Sabo may have been taken captive along with certain other characters. And this was my biggest worry regarding the character, that Sabo may be used to simply recreate the same damsel in distress scenario that Ace was originally placed in, as perhaps a final incentive for Luffy to go to war with the world government. And while on the one hand, in stories I actually really love the idea of a character being placed in an identical challenge to one that they had been in before, where they had previously fallen short, and then in the second time around they get to show their growth as a character by succeeding where they had previously failed. In this particular case, the idea of a long-lost second brother being written into the story just to get captured so that Luffy can then recreate the Marineford scenario but this time succeed in saving his brother, in this case that felt just a bit too forced in my opinion. And so for those three reasons, I have personally never truly come around to loving Sabo the way that many fans do. I've always questioned his purpose and inclusion in the story. But while the amnesia will always be a mild issue for me that I think I'll just have to ignore, the other 2 points of Sabo neutering the impact of Ace's death by being a replacement Ace, and Sabo potentially existing simply to be a damsel in distress, well, as for those 2 points, they are completely out of the window now as of chapter 1054, with Sabo now being framed in a completely different light as the Flame Emperor. Because it seems to me that finally the true purpose of Sabo in the story has started to become clear, and the role that he can play is something that is not only necessary for the narrative, but one that maybe no one else in the story can fulfill. From the start of the series, everything has been headed towards this prophesied dawn of the world, with the idea being that someone someday will come along and end the reign of the world nobles and usher the world into a new era. And as I've talked about in past videos, the brilliance of the Luffy-Ace dynamic is that Ace has always been framed as the chosen one that should have been. Ace was literally fathered by Roger with the express purpose of bringing the dawn of the world. Ace is the man that the Marines all thought would one day lead the next generation of pirates. He is the man that Whitebeard took in specifically to make Pirate King and bring about everything that this would entail. He is the man that even other New World pirates believed had the most potential. Ace was literally depicted as the sun in the One Piece world, the one who was supposed to bring the dawn, and ultimately that light of hope for the future was snuffed out. And as I've talked about before, over time the world has begun to shift, to realize bit by bit that Luffy may be the true inheritor of the Will of D. He may be the one who is actually meant to bring the dawn of the world, the real Joy Boy. And then you have Sabo, who's always been the odd man out of this trio of brothers. No legendary father figure, no Joy Boy potential that's been hinted at. He's not even a Conqueror's Haki user. Sabo is just not written like Luffy or Ace. He was never meant to be a man who would conquer the seas. A particularly telling moment that I've discussed in a recent video is how even though Sabo and Ace are similarly strong as children, Ace has this powerful conqueror's will that Sabo does not, where Ace refuses to back down no matter the forces he is up against, a trait that was explicitly spelled out to parallel Roger. This same trait was what Luffy had to develop in the wake of his failures at Sabaody and Marineford, and is a large part of the reason that Luffy has ascended to the heights that he has reached in the New World. However, while Sabo is not Luffy or Ace, at the same time he is not just this token brother to be included as a replacement for Ace. While Sabo is obviously not cut out to bring the dawn of the world like the other two brothers, Sabo can do something that those two cannot. At the end of the day, Luffy is a pirate, and a simple one at that. He doesn't care about politics, he doesn't care about the complexities of what a better world exactly needs to look like. Luffy has a simple thought process as to what right or wrong is, and he has a simple approach to solving the problems of his friends, which is essentially beating up whoever needs to be beaten up. Throughout the story, wherever Luffy goes, whatever oppressed island or nation he visits, he has one job and one job only, which is to take out the big bad. And whatever fallout, cleanup, restructuring that may come out of that afterwards is not his problem. Luffy is more like a force of nature than anything, to the point that he will turn an entire nation to rubble if it means that a better future can emerge from the destruction that he causes. But that also means that Luffy alone is not enough. What we are seeing now is the potential that Sabo has to change the world as well. Sabo has already become a symbol for many nations that oppose the world government, which suggests that Sabo is going to have a significant role to play as an icon, or potentially even as a leader of sorts during the final war. And assuming that Sabo doesn't die, what's even more important is the role that Sabo may have in shaping the world beyond the events of the final war. Because what's interesting is that while Luffy and Ace are simple thinkers, Sabo is not. Sabo was the first brother to truly analyze and reflect upon the way that the world is, the inequalities and issues that plague the Goa Kingdom. And of course, Goa Kingdom was a microcosm of the inequalities and issues that plague the world at large. Sabo isn't just a pirate going on a freewheeling adventure like the other two brothers. Sabo actually intends to create change. He has a more fleshed out idea of the way that things should be. And so with that in mind, I think the potential Sabo has in the story as this third brother may actually be a lot greater than I previously thought. If Ace existed as the chosen one that had to fail so that Luffy could take up the mantle in his wake, Sabo may be the brother that needs to exist all the way to the end of the story to play the role that Luffy cannot. Luffy can beat Blackbeard or Akainu or Im or whoever needs to be beaten at the end of the day. Luffy can end the Celestial Dragons era and bring the dawn of a new era. But who can actually shape what this new era will look like? Because it's looking like Sabo may already be coming into his own as this figure. It was likely important that the world starts to hear his name more and more as this Flame Emperor, a symbol of revolution that supposedly is even now surpassing Dragon in notoriety, as Sabo may ultimately be a greater force in terms of determining what the inevitable revolution actually means, what it is about. Because as a reminder, every rebellion the Straw Hats have participated in, the Straw Hats have always been outside figures, always joining in alongside a pre-existing organized force that has a vision and a leader. Jen and the villagers, Dalton and the Drum Kingdom citizens, Wiper and the Shandians, Kiros and the Tantadas, Kinemon and the Samurai. These types of figures are the actual visionaries that have an idea of the change that they want to see. The Straw Hats are usually nothing more than traveling pirates whose goals happen to line up such that they become the deciding factor in aiding the pre-existing rebellion. And we may very well see something quite similar play out in the final war. Dragon was already the existing symbol for revolution in the world. Dragon was already the primary force for change, but it has been made clear that Sabo has now sparked something even greater than what Dragon has in the past. Am I saying that Sabo is going to be the main leader of the revolution? No, not necessarily, but it is interesting that Sabo is being framed now as the symbol of change for the world well before Luffy and even supplanting Dragon. And while Luffy will certainly be leading a huge alliance of his own in the final war, while Luffy will certainly be the one to actually defeat the final enemy and basically be the trump card, while Luffy will certainly be the one to bring the dawn, Sabo may be the one who actually begins the war, and more importantly, Sabo may be the one who actually helps shape what the new world will be like after the dawn has been achieved. Again, you may say that someone like Dragon is meant to be the head of the revolution, and Dragon should be playing this role, and previously I believed this to be the case, but already Oda is beginning to push Sabo into that role. And let's not forget the long-running shonen trope across most manga, where the new generation figures ultimately take up the mantle to do what their mentors or those of the previous generation could not do. For instance, the same way we didn't expect Whitebeard to actually overthrow the Marines, the same way that I don't expect Shanks to defeat Blackbeard, so too do I no longer think that Dragon will necessarily be the most important figure in reshaping the world, as his protege, Sabo, may be more important by the end of the day. And lastly, I will also mention Vivi, who I, for a long time, believed would be the single most important figure in the political sense in One Piece, in actually reshaping the world government structure, and potentially even taking up a spot as a major leader for the world, considering how much Vivi's leadership was focused on over the course of the Alabasta arc. And while I still believe that to be true, I now believe that Sabo and Vivi's narratives both becoming somewhat intertwined with the events of the Reverie, and with both of them having great potential to be prominent figures in actually fixing how the world works, I think that both things can be true. That Sabo may be extremely important in the actual political activist role of bringing about worldwide revolution and helping shape the future of the world, while Vivi may also be equally important as a leader for the world post-Celestial Dragons. But let me know if you agree or disagree with Sabo's potential for the future in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe, and you can support me on Patreon for my extended thoughts on this and all future topics.